If I didn't at least introduce to you the cast of characters, and I'm sure that we could add others. Within Iraq, we have the government, currently in Baghdad. Their power comes from the Shia areas, majority of the population, traditionally downtrodden under Sunni-led governments, downtrodden under the Ottoman Empire, downtrodden under the Brits. They're now the ones in the catbird seat, and many of them like it that way and want to keep it that way, including the Prime Minister, al-Maliki. We have ISIS, or now IS, or ISIL, or whatever, a Sunni extremist group, and an extremist group that's so extreme that even al-Qaeda wants nothing to do with it. If they catch Iraqi soldiers, they separate them. Sunnis are let go. Shias are executed. Summary execution. Firing squad. Fall into a ditch. Think World War II Nazis. Okay? In their brutality. They have looted a number of Iraqi and Syrian cities, so they are flush with cash. They can actually pay their insurgents $400 to $600 a month, which is an unheard of wage for a soldier or a militant in that part of the world. So if you want to make the money, you go with ISIS. And that's a factor. Let's be honest. You've seen I've shown you their goals. Currently, it's part of Iraq, the Sunni portions of Iraq and Syria. However, they're already proclaiming that they're going to take a whole bunch of other territories as well. In the short run, they are being successful. In the long run, I would be shocked if they are. That level of brutality tends to breed civil war. Which gets me to the next group in our cast of characters, tribal leaders. Iraq is a tribal society. Sunnis, Shia, Kurds. Call them clans, call them tribes. The extended families, and by that you mean your third cousin twice removed. I'm talking family in the biggest sense of the word. Tribes is central. Because in the culture of Iraq, family is more important than the individual. Okay? Family is more important than the individual. So, if I were to hire someone, let's say you three were applying for a position in Iraq, and I'm an Iraqi, and I'm going to hire you. I would not hire you because you were the most qualified. I would not hire you because you have the greatest chance and potential. I would hire you because you're a distant relative. Nepotism. Accepted. And of course my distant relative gave me the biggest kickback. Because kickbacks are expected. Part of the culture. So, when tribal allegiances are primary, what the tribal leaders say carries political weight. So, tribal leaders were the ones who originally fought us in 2005-06, Sunni tribal leaders. They were the ones that Petraeus convinced to switch sides. And they are the ones who have switched sides again, backing ISIS.
For the money?
Quite possibly, because in today's environment in Iraq, we're gone. Baghdad isn't helping us, and ISIS is. The electricity works again. I'm getting water. I can get gasoline for my stove.
Plus, that's how we got them to flip.
That's how we got them to flip. Life is good. Basic needs are being met. With ISIS, there is security, as long as you obey Sharia law. And gals, yes, that means the bag over the body. Okay? Break Sharia law and you get an Islamic punishment. You steal, you get a hand cut off. I mean, it's that kind of thing. So, that's ISIS. Extremists. Tribal leaders. They're nowhere near as extreme in their understanding of Islam. They're much more mainstream Sunni Islam. They view their choices between a government that represses them and these crazies that at least let us go about our lives. Now, if you had that choice, which one sounds more appealing to you? So you can see why the...
Long term?
They don't look long-term.
Crazy?
Yeah. My anticipation is if ISIS exists long enough, the tribal leaders will overthrow them.
That was my next question, was why don't the tribal leaders sort of team up and try to establish freedom for themselves?
I'm sure they're
That's
thinking
a
about
clue
it.
word.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're thinking about it. However, remember, it's all in the book. It's all determined. ISIS is having success. Therefore, this might be Allah's will.
God must be on their side.
So, we'll wait and see. ISIS starts having failure. Oh, different story now.
Such a passive society.
So they may be well waiting for us to do something to encourage ISIS to have failure. Just kind of sit on the sidelines, sit this one out a little bit, go from there. We have Kurdish Iraq. I've referred to them for a bit. They've taken their ancient center of Kirkuk back. They call it their Jerusalem, just to give you an idea of how important it is to the Kurds. And for the first time in human history, we actually may see a Kurdish state forming up there. It is in everything but name. To give you an idea of how different Iraqi Kurdistan is from the rest of Iraq, back in 2005, when I was there during the height of the insurgency, here, there were tourist flights flying into Kurdistan twice a week from Austria. Tourist flights. Totally safe, totally secure, no problems. The Peshmerga made sure of it. That there was no Sunni or Shia insurgency wandering up to their neck of the woods. In return, the Peshmerga said, we'll stay out of your areas. You stay out of our turf, we'll stay out of yours. So as these two guys were battling it out, the attitude was, well, do you want to bring him in against us? Leave him alone. And that's been the attitude of the Iraqi government ever since. That's why the oil goes north to Turkey 2 years ago, 1 year ago, and the Iraqi government did nothing about it, other than complain. So we're now looking at possibly a portion of Iraq declaring its independence, but they're in no hurry to do so since they actually have it in fact. They may not have it in theory, but they have it in fact. Yeah.
Would Turkey militarily back that independence?
That's the main reason why the Kurds have not done it, in my opinion.
Because they don't know. Or
They don't
they're not
know.
Sure.
The Erdogan government of Ankara, Turkey, historically had been anti-Kurdish independence. Trying to push Iraq to take control of the north, east a little bit more, and had a long battle in this region, long-running civil war. Have you ever seen any of those old movies going back to a couple of years ago about somebody going to find Noah's Ark? But we couldn't go to the mountain because of security reasons. It's a civil war. Because that mountain is right about there. It's not far from Iran either. So that was part of why they couldn't guarantee security because of the civil war. The insurgency. That insurgency has ended. The head of the insurgent group, which was in a Turkish jail, has been freed. As I mentioned before, they're now embracing the Kurds, offering them the right to be Kurdish in Turkey. Before, you couldn't speak Kurdish, you had to speak Turkish. You couldn't practice Kurdish culture, you had to practice Turkish culture.
Is that probably because of the oil going north and the free
Oh,
economics?
I bet it has a lot to do with the oil going north.
So the free economics, everybody
Yeah.
benefits, rising tide.
Yeah, the economics is dictating a lot here, but this is new. This
Okay.
Turkish-Iraq, or this Turkish-Kurdish alliance is new. And it's growing stronger. So there are hints from the Turkish government that they may actually, in fact, not oppose an independent Iraqi Kurdistan, provided Turkey's Kurds don't join it.
Because they'd be looking at losing what, the eastern third? Or
East-
quarter?
about that
Eastern
much.
quarter of the country?
About that much,
Yeah.
roughly. Fair hunk of Turkey.
Yeah.
As well as some of the
Would that give-
hydroelectric power. That big old blue, that's called dams. That's called hydroelectric power.
Would that give them a port too on the Mediterranean?
No, it doesn't go that far over. Kurdistan would be, here. Kurdistan would be
Still
landlocked.
landlocked, okay. Okay.
That would be Kurdistan if it all were to somehow come together, which it has never happened in human history. Okay. So we have the tribal leaders. In the south, the Shia tribal leaders. They've been loyal to the government up till now. There are folks like Ban Sadr. He had, started with an M. Makofi, I'm forgetting the name, army. He had an insurgent army that fought the U.S. for a while and then disbanded the army. Well, now he's got about 10,000 fighters protecting Baghdad. They're not government troops, they're his. He has called for Maliki's resignation, saying we have got to find a more equitable solution. So he's gone from an extreme firebrand to more of a moderate. Interesting shift for him. But you have the tribal leaders. The tribal leaders dictate what happens on the ground in any given city in Iraq. If the tribal leaders are in you name it, Mosul, Tikrit, wherever, say ISIS is out, they're going to be gone pretty quick. They'll cut a deal with the government, they'll cut a deal with the Kurds, they'll be out. The fact that has not happened tells me that so far the tribal leaders are putting up with ISIS. That's the main cast of characters in the country. Many smaller groups like Christians, Assyrians down here, other religious groups down here, the Marsh Arabs. I mean, you can get into some of the smaller groups. Outside Iraq, Turkey. We've mentioned what's happening there. That's a historic shift, and it's recent. Syria, until its own civil war, had been meddling in Iraq. The Assad government, on behalf pro-Baghdad, pro-Shia government. Remember, Bashir, as well as his father, are Alawite, close to Shia but not quite. There's an affinity. Iran, the one country in the world that is overwhelmingly Shiite. About 14% of the world's Muslims are Shia. By far the largest Shia populations are in Iran. They have the systems with the Ayatollahs, a grand Ayatollah, a supreme leader who basically can dictate to the government. They have an illusion of democracy, but the supreme leader can overrule anything that the government does. Simply by saying that's not Islamic. So he has a veto power over anything and everything. So far, he is condemning U.S. involvement in Iraq, claiming that we are there to try to take control of the country. Translation, trying to keep Iran from taking control of the country. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, United Arab Emirates. They are quietly funding ISIS because they're watching their fellow Sunnis being mistreated by the Baghdad government. And they figure ISIS is better than Baghdad. That this caliph is a better deal than the Maliki government, and this, to me, misguided belief that they can control them through their dollars. You might be able to control rational people through dollars. You do not control religious zealots through dollars. When you look at what we now call terrorists, which is a misnomer, if you look at types of terrorism, one is economic. Kidnapping. It's happened a lot in Latin America. You kidnap something because you want their money for your cause. So FARC in Colombia will kidnap people, get a ransom, let the person go, they're treated well. Once they got the money, they let the person go because they want the money. A political terrorist will bomb or do something like that, mainly to get the government to overreact. Do something horrible to get the government to really put down the repression, because then you'll get enough support to start a civil war. That's the goal of political terrorism, and that's the aim of political terrorism. Religious terrorism is by far the most dangerous, where the divine is telling me to kill you. Money is kind of resistant to money and other types of pressure. If I believe God has told me to kill you, that's kind of hard to fight.
Their willingness to fight is at an all-time high.
Your willingness to fight is at an all-time high. And within Islam, success is everything. So the way to take the wind out of ISIS sails is they've got to experience failure. We've got to make them look like a failure. That they are not able to do what they set out to do. How we do that, That's the trick. That's the challenge. Okay. So Sunni nations are backing Sunni extremists because they see them as a better option. Not that they love ISIS, they don't. But it's a better option than al-Maliki. And you got to remember, that Sharia government up here is different from the Sharia government down here only in brutality. Women are not allowed to drive in Saudi Arabia. Women are not allowed to leave the home without a male family escort in Saudi Arabia. Women outside the home must wear the bag by law. There are religious police in Saudi Arabia. So 5 times a day, when the cry goes from the minaret, come to prayer, everything stops. If you don't have a prayer mat, you see a newspaper. Lay it down. That's your prayer mat. Do the required prayers. And if you don't, you get arrested by the religious police if they catch you. And a lot of people are kind of looking around like, oh, there's one, okay.
Why aren't they praying?
The religious police make sure everyone else is, and then they do as well. You're also allowed to play catch-up. For example, if you're on an airplane, and it's time for prayer, where you're supposed to face Mecca. Which way is Mecca? What happens if the plane turns mid-prayer? Not cool. Besides, can you imagine everybody trying to get into that little tiny aisleway to pray? I mean, you got to get down on your hands and knees, folks. So, in Islamic countries around the world, you'll see prayer chapels. The idea is you do the required prayers before you get on the flight or after you get off, if you miss a prayer time. You do makeup. Yeah.
What percentage of Muslims, trying to find the word, actually believe what they practice?
Probably about the same percentage of Christians.
Oh, that bad.
People are people. The Saudis are famous. No alcohol, no smoking, no drinking. And as soon as they get out of country into, say, Bahrain, where they can, they are famous for drinking like fishes and smoking like chimneys. And there's jokes about them throughout the Middle East. As soon as they're out from under, bam, party time. People are people. A lot of Saudis looking around. Oh yeah, okay, no police, good. Go about their business during prayer. About the same, I would say, if you really got down to it. But the difference between Sharia here and Sharia in these ISIS areas is not that different. The difference is this is a very brutal regime. This one has a velvet glove over its iron fist. In other words, you'll go to jail as part of a court process, not executed on the spot. But many of the laws are the same. So these guys don't see these guys as all that bad, other than we gotta teach them how to be nice. Al-Qaeda, they were involved. They were allied with ISIS. They are not now. So they are now opposed to ISIS. However, since ISIS has had success, Al-Qaeda has become irrelevant. The Al-Nusra Front, part of the Syrian conflict, allied with ISIS now, has sworn allegiance to ISIS, cutting its ties with Al-Qaeda. So this idea of success again. So everyone's going the direction of ISIS. So Al-Qaeda is now marginalized. We're involved. Have been. European Union is involved in a number of ways, primarily economically and diplomatically. Russia is trying to get involved. The collapse of the Soviet Union left Russia without an ally or a partner in this whole region, except for Syria. That conflict continues in part because Russia props up the Assad government. Russia just sold some aging jet fighters to Iraq. Jet fighters that are very good at bombing the ground. Read ISIS positions. So Russia's trying to get back into it as a participant. And I put one here with a question mark. Israel. How long will Israel stand by before it believes its existence is threatened by ISIS and take action? knowing, however, that if Israel attacks ISIS, you could have the rest of the Arab world uniting against Israel.
Which draws us in.
And that draws us in. So the Israeli government is really walking a tightrope. They are not at all happy about ISIS. They would love to take ISIS out of the picture. But know that if they hit Muslim positions, the danger of everybody uniting against them is real great. So, if I were to hear rumors of Mossad actions in northern and northwestern Iraq, it would not surprise me in the least. Covert, not overt. I think I've got the cast of characters that are currently involved in Iraq. It is a country that is an artificial creation of Great Britain. It was a country that, had they been allowed to in 1917, would have voted to form a government with Syria, with Jordan, with Palestine, and Saudi Arabia. A Congress was held in Damascus, an Arab National Congress. It included the borders of all those countries today, and they voted to set up a government. They set up a government. But what happened was the British and the French came in and said, no, you get this part. We're taking this. British mandate for Jordan, British mandate for Iraq, French mandate for Syria, French mandate for Lebanon. And they drew a line on a map. And that's part of the big reason why we're here today. Because these are three ethnic groups that never voted to be in the same country. Never really wanted to be in the same country. And yet now we're in a situation where their best option is to somehow be in the same country. Questions? Thoughts? Observations? Yes?
Is there a head to the ISIS snake, or is this...
Oh, al-Baghdadi, I believe his name is. He's now been declared the Caliph of let's see. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the new leader or Caliph of the Islamic State.
But is he really in control of all of ISIS, or
Yeah.
does he have a replacement behind him if something should happen to him?
Oh, I'm sure he's got someone else to take over, but currently he is in charge. He has proved himself to be a pretty savvy commander, militarily. He has proven himself to be as brutal as anybody. And it remains to be seen whether he can do anything else. He was in Al-Qaeda in Iraq. He was a foot soldier for that insurgency, had risen to a middle-level command position. When that fizzled, he went over to Syria, was involved in founding ISIS, now probably back in Iraq.
Where is he from?
Iraq,
That's his home.
believe so. I'd have to go back and check.
How old is he?
Oh gosh, how old is he? I want to say 40s.
I don't have my phone, I can't look it up for you.
Yeah, I'd have to go looking that one up. Do not know. If someone wants to look him up,
You have to tell them how to spell it.
oh, I can do better. Yes.
I don't suppose there's any country over there where women are involved in the government, that maybe is real?
Israel, definitely. Turkey, yes.
What was the question?
Are women involved in government
Thank you.
in any meaningful way? Turkey, Israel, and I would suspect to a certain extent in Egypt.
Born in 71, 42.
Born in 71. Okay.
You were right, around 40.
Yep, right around 40.
43.
I was just judging from looking at his picture. But women, according to Islam, Islamic apologists, those who are pro-Islam, would say they do not discriminate against women. However, that depends wildly. In Turkey, yes, women do have relative equality. There are glass ceilings there as there are here. In Saudi Arabia, well, we've described the situation there. Those are both overwhelmingly Islamic countries. However, this is Wahhabi Sunni And this is, I hate it when I forget. It's another school of Sunni, starts with a K. Oh, Lord, I hate it when my brain freezes like that. Anyway, there are 4 main sects within Sunni. The most liberal, Turkey; most conservative, Saudi Arabia. In fact, yes,
I read today somewhere that there were a lot of refugees fleeing out of Iraq. How in the world do they know where there's a safe place to go?
Turkestan for one.
when someone is bombing you, you run.
Anywhere is safer.
Anywhere is better.
Well, the Kurds right now are letting them come.
Yeah,
back.
by the thousands. The Kurds up here in the north, by the thousands, are allowing refugees up this way.
Okay.
And they're getting international aid.
The southern ones, I imagine, into Kuwait.
Not so much, because this area is relatively peaceful. It's still Shia-controlled, still government-controlled. The insurgency has not gotten down here at all. It has stayed in the Sunni areas.
So the exit is basically north.
Plus Kuwait's not real good about taking in.
Yeah. Where you see yellow is where there has been insurgency action. Where you don't see yellow, you have not seen insurgency action. The Sunni areas, period. Remember, their stated aim, remember the stated aim of this crew, whoop, wrong way, is this. So down here, Kuwait, this area, they're not messing with it for now. So they're fleeing to Turkey, fleeing to Iraqi Kurdistan, fleeing to Jordan, because down here in Saudi Arabia, there's a whole lot more nothing. You're going to go 1,000 miles before you hit anything. You're going to die in the desert. So you don't go that way. You follow the rivers. Yes?
We have quite a few mosques here in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Are any of these mosques definitely Sunni or Shia? Or
Yes. There are.
Okay. For instance, the one on Kennedy Drive.
Okay. It depends on what the population is. If you are in LA, which has a large emigre population from Iran, you will see Shia mosques. If you are in the Quad Cities, you will see Sunni mosques. However, if a Shia in the United States wish to go to a Sunni mosque to pray, they would be welcomed. Why? They're a minority group. When you have minority groups, they tend to stick together. It's when a group becomes majority, they tend to split. Christians in Iraq tend to stick together. Why? They're a minority. They tend to get along with the Kurds. Why? The Kurds are also a minority. Same thing. So to many American Muslims, what they're doing over there is totally barbaric. Totally barbaric. But then most American Muslims tend to lean toward the more moderate schools of Islam. There are a few extremists, but nowhere near as many as there are in Europe. We've had a far better experience with Islam in this country than Europe has. European governments have been more repressive toward Islamic minorities, and in return the Islamic minorities have been more extremist than what we see here. One of Al-Qaeda's main fears is American Islam. Because it believes in democracy, it believes in civil rights, it believes in equality under the law. And it's an interesting theory because according to ISIS, according to strict Islamic doctrine, the people, the Ummah, the people of God, should elect their caliph, their leader. Now for ISIS, that means that person's in for life. But in American Islam, no. The people, not just the Ummah, but all the people of a nation should elect their leader for a set period of time. Does that sound kind of like a president? It's an Islamic version of democracy. It's what Iran claims to have but does not have because it has a supreme leader acting as a dictator over the process, which makes it technically a theocracy. Any other questions, comments? I thank you for your time. And on our last session, next week, we go to Fantasyland. North Korea. A land where the leader has seen a unicorn. A land where the current leader's father, the first time he played golf, got a perfect 18 and 18 holes. And never played again because he couldn't do any better. And a country where if you laughed in public the way you did now, you would be executed. North Korea, next week. Thank you. And never played again because he couldn't do any better. And a country where if you laughed in public the way you did now, you would be executed. North Korea, next week. Thank you.